Hey traders, Cody from Samurai Trading Academy here. Just thought I'd put together a quick recap some of my own trades for today, Tuesday, May the 24th. Just trading the Emini S&P 500 futures contract, and overall a fairly solid day. 4.5 points made on 4 trades. Could have been a bit better. There's definitely a couple of things that could have taken advantage of, and one especially early on in the market that normally I would have, but I was a little bit more focused on just working with some of the people in our training program, and sometimes that does mean that I can occasionally miss a trade here and there. Not too big a deal in the grand scheme of things, but it did mean I missed an early one here that was a pretty easy long. But aside from that, there's a fairly good trend going on here, but still a little bit difficult just because it was a trend that had already run a decent distance in the pre-market. We've gone about 17 points or so, and that can make things a little bit difficult because the market can sometimes get a little bit exhausted as it enters into the market open here around that 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, the New York Open, and sometimes struggles a little bit to make continuations, or in a case like this where it does make continuations, sometimes does things with a little bit less momentum, a little bit more kind of grindy behavior, and that's not unusual to happen in bullish trends anyways. It's what tends to make them a bit more difficult to trade than bearish trends. But when the market has already run a little bit more in the pre-market, it tends to make things a little bit more difficult as well. So what we saw here, as the market opened up, we saw a good opportunity for a long, like I said, and it just continued to push up. Tried to latch onto this one, wasn't able to get a fill on it, unfortunately, according to my rules. And, that does happen sometimes. Not a big deal if I miss out, but a little bit unfortunate because it did have a pretty good continuation move. But was able to latch on in here once we saw a little bit of momentum pop back into the market. Took that up for a couple points. And then was being a little bit more cautious in here because we had an area above that was fairly important on bigger time frames in terms of an area where some supply was fairly likely to enter the market in some force. We wanted to be cautious up here, but we had a little bit of room, but we were starting to see a little bit of different price behavior, some shifting momentum conditions, and probably best being a little bit cautious in here. So looking for something a little bit deeper to trade and a bit more conservative. So wasn't really able to take advantage of that one either. So a little bit unfortunate in here because most conditions you're able to take a little bit more of a move like this, but not really any harm done if you can't grab every point available in something like that, because like I said at the beginning of this, it was a little bit more of a difficult trend compared to some of them. So from there though, once we broke through this pretty key area and started to stabilize above it and gave a little bit of a clear level in here, there's a possibility for a pretty good level trade in the direction of the trend, which is the way I like to take those. And then we had a chance to fade this as well because we headed back into this area with very little momentum. We had already run a pretty long ways, so a fairly safe one to take, but took a smaller profit on it when it started to stumble a little bit and wasn't really following through as aggressively as I wanted. So a small profit because it was a little bit of a riskier trade there, and didn't want to give it too much time. Even a chance to go long again here, same thing off these levels, a DLP as we call them, but let that one go. I couldn't quite find where I wanted to get in here because it didn't hold quite long enough for me. But then we had one last chance for a long. Now this was definitely the riskiest trade of the day because of the false break potential here, based on the way this pattern was forming and kind of the sort of exhaustive burst that had occurred in here. And so knew that if this one didn't hold and continue right away, it's probably coming back. So just took a small risk on it. Only was risking 2 to 3 ticks on it possible and aiming for 8 to 12. So still a very good reward to risk. Unfortunately, didn't fall through, but not a big deal. So a few hours of trading there, 4.5 points. Still a pretty solid result. And hopefully, as we see some high impact news and stuff coming into the market as the week goes on here, we'll continue to get some good opportunities, some good trades, and plenty of opportunity to make a nice profit for the complete week. So that's it for now, guys. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next recap.